Namaste, my name is Amir Shrapati and I'm the director of the Nehru Centre London. Now, some may think of Nehru Centre as just this beautiful fine building, and it is a fine building, no doubt. We have a wonderful art gallery out here. We have an awesome auditorium on the first floor with a capacity of 100 to 120 people right here in the heart of central London in Mayfair. But the Nehru Centre is a lot more than this fine building. The Nehru Centre is also an online platform. We are available on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram and on YouTube. And so the Nehru Centre is actually wherever you want it to be. Of course, we'd love for you to come to the physical events that we organize out here when we do organize them. But do join all our online platforms as well. This is a hybrid world. We are going to have offline physical events and online events as well. So do join our online platforms and do keep giving us feedback of what you think of it. We'd love to host you out there. We'd love to hear what you think of our events, and do keep sending in your suggestions as well. We do keep imbibing and learning from the feedback that you give to us to give you programs that you guys might enjoy. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Namaste. Jai Hind. Namaste, my name is Amir Shrapati. I am the director of the Nehru Centre and also an author. And those of you who have followed my writing career know that I have a special place in my heart for Calcutta. I did my MBA from IIM Calcutta, and I rarely miss any opportunity to go back to Calcutta, be it for a lit fest or for the launch of one of my books. And therefore, I utterly loved this book when I read it. It's called Kolkata Classics, a book of verse by Supriya Newar. It explores the nuances, everyday occurrences, the oddities of this wonderful city of Calcutta, with gentle humor and sentimentalism. Each of the poems are also accompanied by an illustration. So I thought it's a book certainly worth exploring. Fortunately, the programming team at the Nehru Centre agreed with me. And so here we are with the launch for this book. And if we can bring up the author, Supriya Newar, up on stage, please. Pleasure having you with us, Supriya.
Hello, Vish. Lovely to be here. Thank you so much for hosting me. And I have to say that if you wait to come to Calcutta, all of Calcutta waits for you to come.
You're too kind. Thank you. Thank you. The person to be in conversation with Supriya is Dr. Rupali Basu. If we can bring her up on stage, please. And then I'll do the formal introduction of both Supriya and Rupali.
Hello.
Namaste, namaste, Dr. Basu. Pleasure to have you on the Nehru Centre platform. I'm going to do the formalities. We are a Sarkari place, so I'm going to do the formal introductions, and then I'm going to leave it to you, Dr. Basu, to carry it forward. So, first, the author, Supriya Newar. Supriya Newar was born and brought up in Kolkata, a student of arts. She holds a master's degree in international relations and has steered noteworthy brands for over 2 decades. A sensitive writer and poet, Supriya befriended the pen very early and has several hundred articles and travelogues published widely. An aficionado of Indian classical as well as folk music, an avid bookworm and a traveler, Supriya is also a visiting lecturer and consultant. Pleasure having you with us, Supriya.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amish. Thank you so much.
And if I may introduce the person who's going to grill you or be in conversation with you, Dr. Rupali Basu is an expert in the healthcare sector in India and is currently the managing director and CEO of Woodlands Multi-Speciality Hospital Limited in Kolkata. She's a medical graduate from RG Kar Medical College, Kolkata, with a postgraduate training in health and hospital management from Harvard and Delhi universities. She sits on the board of directors of many companies such as Tata Metallics, Tata Tinplate, Goodrich Group Limited, etc. She also works with the visually impaired and weavers of West Bengal to help them through her various charities. Rupali, pleasure to have you on the Nehru Centre platform as well. Thank you both for
Thank
joining
you.
us from Calcutta online. Now over to you, Rupali.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Amish.
so much.
Thank you. So we'll go straight to Supriya's book, and we will start with the cover of the book. Supriya, can I ask
So,
you a question that, can we just show everyone the
of
cover of the
course,
book? Can you also show,
of course.
this is the book?
Sorry, that's the
It's
bookmark.
such,
Yes, and
yeah.
that's the cover.
And that's the cover, and it's so so different, so colorful, yet it has a base of beige and almost beigeish white, I would say. So what was the thought behind it, Supriya, and why did you also mention it as Kolkata Classics?
Right. Rupalidi, first of all, can I thank you tremendously for doing this conversation. Pleasure really to be in conversation with someone as erudite as you. Kolkata Classics, see, first of all, it's a book of verse. So I wanted to keep the cover minimal, clean, and one of the greatest myths is that we say is don't judge a book by its cover. But the fact is, most readers, when they step into a bookstore or even if you're browsing online, chances are that you do look at a cover, and a cover does make a difference. So how could we make it instantly Kolkata,
Yes.
attractive, and yet not cluttered? Wanted a clean look. So if you see what we've used, if I can show it to the readers once more, this many would immediately recognize is our wonderful Khoti Goro, the apparatus for the Khoti Goro. And for those of you who are not familiar with what this is there's hot steaming charcoal here inside, and there's some chanachur. That charcoal actually keeps the chanachur warm, and the Ghotigorum fellow, unlike many peddlers or street vendors who have a call in Kolkata when they go about their rounds, this guy just rings a very gentle bell. He doesn't have a call, he doesn't shout out, or he doesn't peddle his wares very loudly. And I've always been fascinated by that bell. So that was really the visual. And Kotigaram is unique to Kolkata. You may still find puchka and you call it golgappa, whatever, pani puri. You may find so many other things in different parts of the country, but you'll not find Kotigaram. And then we've added some quintessential elements to the cover, such as we have the dab and we have fish flying out. That, of course, also was the genius of my designer, Shorish Mitra, a very gifted designer. And as far as the title goes, Kolkata Classics, uh, all the poems, Rupalidi, if you've noticed, are absolutely, they are elements that are classic Kolkata. So the title was literally a no-brainer. They were such classic elements of Kolkata that we said that the title is straight and simple, and bullseye Kolkata Classics. So that is about the cover.
Wonderful. So before we go into the next question, I think let's have the book launch video on behalf
Sure.
of Amish. Can we have the book launch video? Wonderful. So
Great.
I think we'll go into the the next question, which is, I think, the if I look at the topics that you have chosen to write about, they don't really look like a proper poetry. Topics like chhata and ombol and cha. Those not only the words are Bengali and very Kolkata, but they're also doesn't really suggest poetry. How do you go about selecting those topics, Supriya?
Uh, so I'll have to give a slightly long-winded answer to this, Rupalidi, because the fact is
Mhm.
sometimes when we think of poetry,
Mm.
we try and peg poetry at this very esoteric level. I've almost always felt that the way many poets and readers also approach poetry is perhaps they'd have to really arch their heels and stretch and look at a extremely heavy duty book which will have verbose language, which will have topics that are perhaps deeply philosophical or full of wisdom or layers. Whilst all of that is there, I also feel that poetry can be anything you want it to be. It can be fun, it can be sentimental, it can evoke nostalgia. It depends what is it that you want to evoke through your poems. As far as this collection goes, my abiding thought was that how is it that in this extremely rapidly changing world, and more so in the last 2 years, and who better to know that than you're running a multi-speciality hospital, how is it that in so much change all around us, there are these extremely simple elements that continue to reign and continue to remain relevant, not only in this city, otherwise also, but of course, these elements are particular to this city, and they cut across strata of society. So whether it is when you say cha, which is chai in Hindi, now can you think of anybody who forget a local, even somebody who comes and stays in Kolkata for a bit, starts consuming more chai than he perhaps ever has in his life. So how is it? And again, talking about the barriers, and you could be from anywhere. Your education, your background, your profession, your age. It could be anything. And for example, you say chata. Now, the world has gone through God knows how many changes and turmoils and turbulations, but a chata is a chata is a chata. And we are speaking at the Nehru Centre London, and everyone knows what the London weather is like and carries a chata around. And we are going to hit the monsoons perhaps in a week in Kolkata. And there you'll have it. Every car will have a chata. Every passenger, everybody, every student, every professional in his bag tucked away or in the car, certainly in homes. So how is it that these utterly simple, ordinary looking things and elements and nuances, which we take so much for granted, have sort of survived time, have survived change, and have become a part of our lives? So that was the reason why, and every single one of those topics, if you delve deep enough, you'll see that the relevance has stayed on. So that was the abiding thought and meter to tick on those topics and turn them into poetry.
Absolutely, when it's so much so true. Only on chata you were talking about chata, so I can also add on few more sentences which has happened even today itself. I'll be in London next week, so
Right.
my friend. I was talking to my friend who's a doctor there, and then I'll be going to stay with them for a day or have dinner and all that. So she was saying that Rupali, please carry a chata in your bag at that time. So because you don't know London weather, what will happen. So
Absolutely.
please do a little folding chata. And just before that, I was having a discussion at the hospital, and as you mentioned that 7 days down the line there will be monsoon here, and I was actually, kind of asking my chief operating officer that whether the staff who are on the premise, because you have the guards and you have the
Oh.
gardener and you have some of the housekeeping staff who does work on the premise, do they have their chatas? Do the drivers have their chata with the cars? So we actually,
There you
talked.
have it. An MD and a CEO of a noted hospital worrying about chatas.
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
and also I also wonder sometimes that it is this ordinariness of these things that
Absolutely.
make it extraordinary. We
And
just
that
have
is
to.
Kolkata. That is
And
Kolkata.
that is Kolkata. And that is
Proud to be
Kolkata,
from.
and that is the joy that is kind of intertwined in the little things that we have.
It's absolutely true. So that brings me to the next question. Supriya, you have also used a lot of Bengali words into your English. It's after all a poetry book in English. So how do you think that that adds a lot of local flavor? That's true. But is there a thought behind using this mix of languages of Bengali and English, or Bengali words into an English poetry?
Rupali, the honest thought there is that certain topics, for example, if I have a topic, say anything, say if I'm doing a poem on Periwala, how can I not use local words? How can I do justice to these topics without judiciously deploying local words, sentiments, sometimes even slang, but not overdoing it and not force fitting it. So it still reads very much like an English poetry book, but and for those who have any trouble understanding some of the words, I've provided a very detailed glossary at the end
Yes.
that would help the slightly non-Bengali readers. I
Mhm.
also feel that it is through reading and it is through books that we travel cultures. We can't
Mhm.
be, whoever we are, we can't be everywhere all the time. So it is by grasping, by consuming, by reading, books. As you say, that's armchair travel. You can come to know of the culture and of the way people live in a certain place, or even their way of life, the way they think, the way they look at life. So, how do you do all of that without not using some local words? And
Mhm.
like I said, both my editor and I, we very conscious that it nowhere should it look as if it's been overdone or it's been
Mhm.
force fitted or it was not needed there. Also, one had to be careful whilst using the Bengali words. They had to fit into a particular rhyme and a meter. Ultimately, it is a book of poems, and most of my poems have a meter to it. They're not free verse.
Mhm.
So, in fact, that was a challenge also to use the local words, to use the Bengali words, and yet to retain the rhyme and the meter. But
Mm.
that
Yeah.
was the thought to bring authenticity, to bring flavor,
Mm.
and to do justice to these topics.
Absolutely, and what for everyone, I would like to just go to the page 89, and there's full glossary where actually Supriya has written the meanings for all of us. The words are given gan bajna or adda deya and things like that. So all the Bengali words are on your left, and the meanings are there on the right. It's very nicely and neatly written down for next few pages.
Thank
Uh,
you.
so it's very helpful. Glossaries are, when you are using a mix of language, then it's always good to have those meanings too. Uh, when I went through, I didn't read it, your book, much earlier. I just kind of was going through it just few days back, and it seemed to be so easy. It was so easy to read, so easy to so uh, so simple to go through. It had its own flow, and very easy and very charming. So, and it's very conversational. When it was, very easily I could read through. Many times, many of the books are difficult. It's not that we don't like them. We do like to read difficult and
Yes.
complicated books, but this was very written very simply, and versus those complex poetry books. So, what is your thoughts on that? When I'm sure it has been done by choice, by your plan. So, share your thoughts
Right.
on that, Priya.
Actually, Rupalidi, I must tell you, I was writing this, all the poems have been written in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is, you'll remember very much that December onwards, we were in the throes of the Omicron wave.
Absolutely.
And all through December it started, kind of the numbers started mounting, and January, at least in Calcutta, it really peaked.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, there was lockdown and movement was restricted. And as luck would have it, the building in which I live in had innumerable number of cases, like left, right, and center. Touchwood, fortunately, I skipped it, but everywhere, so once again after 2020, and you started the year 2021 on a slightly difficult or a slightly morbid note.
Mm-hmm.
In this, what happened is, one fine day I was sitting and we're looking at I think December, And in this sort of slightly dark and depressing mood setting in, there was the
Mhm.
Periwala's call right behind my house. And I think he was selling March and another fellow. And I know their call. I know which Periwala it is because he has the same voice and he throws his voice starting early in the morning.
Mhm.
And so, whilst most of life had packed up, you were not socializing, you were not going out, people were not coming
Mhm.
in, all of that, there were these simple things such as the suburban train which was still plying. So
Mhm.
the train was still hooting in the morning, the
Mhm.
periwala's call was still there.
Mhm.
And that day I remember I sat and I thought to myself that in turmoil, and when we are perhaps going through difficulty, we
Mhm.
actually look for the familiar. That is what anchors us.
Mhm.
And it is only when things are, hunky dory and all is good that
Mhm.
we strive for the unfamiliar. So it is
Mhm.
it is when things are not okay that we want to hold on to something that has anchored us and that we know as our own. And once again, it was the simple things of this city and everything that we've grown up with and that we
Mhm.
call very much our own
Mhm.
helped me re anchor myself
Mhm.
in all of December and January. That particular day, I sat down and I wrote Periwala, which was one of
Mhm.
the first poems to be written for the collection. And by the evening, I was feeling much, much better. And the next day, I sent it off to the publisher, who felt it read very nice. He said it has a very nice scent to it, and
Mhm.
he said, "Can you do something with it?" So I said, "Okay, let me delve on it and let me dig a little deeper."
Mhm.
And so I said that if we look at the simple everyday things,
Mhm.
perhaps those are the things that will help us anchor. Those are the things that we must, in a way, pay tribute to, pay our thanks to. The things that we take for granted sometimes don't notice carefully enough. The beauty hidden in those elements. So that is why I chose these topics, and that is the simplicity of this poem, and the conversational bit. To be honest with you, I wanted to create a book that felt like an adda. You wouldn't you
So,
wouldn't feel that you were reading the book by yourself,
mhm.
except for the poet's note, which is a little serious. The entire book has been all the poems have been written in such a way as if you're sitting across a friend and you're discussing a topic and you're having an adda. It's just a conversation. That was
Mhm.
the tone and tenor that I wanted to maintain for all the poems.
Oh, it's come out so well. And here at this moment, we have to hear from you. Why don't you read out Periwala to us from your book?
Very well. All right, sure.
Mhm. Or
Um,
one verse you have to read it to us. Periwala, is it?
It could be Perivela. It should we do Boimela since we are
Boimala?
doing book
Yes,
launch?
yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Perivela
That's
has several Bengali words, so some people may not be able to understand that without a glossary
okay.
in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
So, Boimala it is.
do you want to read out the introduction to Boimela, and then
Yes.
I could read out the poem?
So Boimala meaning is actually called book fair. So Boi is book and Mala is fair. Kolkata Book Fair is the world's largest non-trade book fair and Asia's largest and most attended book fair. It is the world's third largest annual conglomeration of books after the Frankfurt Book Fair and the London Book Fair. I have wonderful memories of visiting the book fair with my parents and buying books and reading them. The book fair is always and incidentally, the Boimala and I have both spent the same number of years in the city.
Right. So that's the introduction. Thank you for reading that out. Here goes Boimela, the book fair, the Kolkata Book Fair. Way back in 1975, when the idea was mooted by the then wise folk, it was promptly booted. Will you now sell books too, like Alu and Deem? They questioned. The idea hurt their esteem. But the men of letters who'd gathered went ahead to build what came to be known as the Publishers and Booksellers Guild. The first Kolkata Book Fair was a result of their ideation. From Frankfurt to London, they had drawn inspiration. 4 decades and more since its debut have passed, a cult status, a following it has since then amassed. Attracting thousands of footfalls, the book fair or Boy Mela shouldn't be understood as child's play or kala. Days are marked, pocket money is saved, thulo, dhua, dhakka, and long queues are braved. There's Anando and Desh and Days Publishing. There's Timely and Rupa and Oxford and Penguin. There's the country of honor, who is our Otithi. They could be from anywhere, from Dhaka to Tahiti. There are seminars, symposiums, and book signing. For an autographed copy, there is much pining. Amidst passionate live poetry and Robindra Sangeet, can be heard rockbaji and every possible beat. Artists mill around at what is called Montmartre, where they do live portraits and display their art. Little magazines have a specially reserved corner. Future award winning writers may be born here. After hours of browsing, when a respite is sought, a sunny spot with a cuppa is secured on the mart. A freshly fried fish would now be opportune, coupled with sticky candy floss and salted popcorn. In all of this bheed, there's a lost child announced. Buried in books, his head is soon pronounced. Crowded and chaotic, the Boy Mela is an awaited celebration of this city and its spirit. It is truly a reflection. Ironically, though the printed word here is quite the gospel, no words nor phrases can describe its magic spell.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank
Very,
you
very nice.
so much.
Very nice. It's really talks about the essence of the Boy Mala. It's true that the bead and Hariye Jawa, the lost child, that's so typical and so
And
Kolkata
we've
Boy.
all heard those announcements. There is
Yeah,
invariably a lost child,
yeah,
and
it is
invariably he's found reading some book.
something. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I'm sure even you have wonderful memories. All of us do, going to the Boy
yeah.
Mela with friends and parents and from college and saving money for it.
And nothing would stop us, with the whatever the dhulo or the garam or nothing will the heat, nothing will stop us going to movie. It's
Yeah.
like was going to a place where you enjoy, you reveal
Yeah.
so much. But it's such
Yeah.
memories have been created every year.
Nothing short of a pilgrimage, really, for any
Yeah,
Kolkata.
almost like a pilgrimage. Yes, yes,
Almost like a pilgrimage.
absolutely.
So therefore, again, and with all the retail and everything that's gone online, I believe this year in 2022, the Boy
Hmm.
Mela thrashed all figures in terms of footfalls and sales and everything. And any bookshop or distributor you spoke to, they were thrilled. They were after 2 years of pandemic. The
Yeah.
Kolkata Boy Mela it brought a smile to everyone's faces. I
Hmm.
went there twice to sign books. It was chock a block. The only thing that has changed, perhaps from the time you and I went to the Boy Melas to today, is the number of selfie sticks you see. There are these huge groups of college students who are carrying selfie sticks, and or if they're not carrying the sticks, they're taking selfies all the time. Other than that, nothing has changed. It's the same spirit, the same love, the same madness for food and adda and friendship and books and কি কিনলি দেখা কি কিনলি এই এটা আমি নেব তুই পড়ে নে তারপর আমি নেব all that still goes on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember the 2 year in 2015 I became we brought out a magazine which is a lifestyle magazine, not a book, and I was the editor, and we had of course a consulting editor group, and it was and we were in Boimala that those 2 years with
Right.
our magazine which used to call Ajke Shampurna. It's
Ah,
wonderful. 2 years after that, of course, it got folded up because I left, and there was nobody to
sure.
carry it on. Uh,
Right.
anyway, so after I think you just told me to read out that write up before the poem. just starting of
The
we have a little
introduction,
bit of
right?
your introduction, and it's done in for every verses that you have put
Yeah.
in Kolkata Classics. Tell me, what was your thought that you wanted to do an introduction of each poem? It's not really seen in many poem books.
Yeah, you're right about that. I think there were two ideas. Every poem has a tiny introduction.
Mhm.
One is, I think I just wanted to give the very dictionary definition of that subject. So before you get into a poetic expression of that subject,
Mhm.
you just get to understand. For example, if there is a poem called Ombol, you'll never understand, what is Ombol. So you would just get the simple dictionary meaning and definition, which I have taken from Wikipedia or other sources, and I have attributed it to those sources. That was one. And the second thing, I think, in the introduction, what I've tried to do is explain my equation or my experience of those particular topics. For example, in the book fair, in the introduction that you just read, I have
Mm.
explained how I have wonderful, beautiful memories, and I continue to go to the book fair. And how I think the book fair, in many ways, turned me into a bookworm and a book lover, and it taught you so much over the years. You consistently went there for maybe 8, 10, 12 years. I don't know how
Mhm.
many years.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to explain my equation with every subject that I chose, which
Mhm.
is not necessarily made a part of the poem. So if
Mhm.
I have, for example, if there's a poem on jhal muri, which is basically masala muri, jhal muri,
Mhm.
which is a street snack.
Mhm.
In the introduction, I share my favorite little ingredient that I like to add to the jhal muri. Now that those things I have not made a part of the poem per se. So I think it was just to ease the reader and get him into the mood of that subject
Mhm.
before he starts reading the poem, just to kind of whet his appetite about that subject.
Mhm. Probably also, the way you are thinking, you have thought about the poetry book in a different way, and probably this
So,
prose and the conversation, a part of that also you have written down. When I say, for example, the word bylanes, the poem bylanes, you have written one of the best ways to keep rediscovering the city is to walk around in its labyrinth bylanes, and bylanes are, in Bangla it's called goli.
goli,
So I
goli,
was
goli.
thinking
Yeah,
somewhere you will put that word goli. Of
I
course,
have put it. Yeah,
you
it
have,
is there
yeah, you
in the
have
poem,
put
of
it there.
course,
So
of course.
I'm sure you must have done that, because that
So
goli thing
actually,
is so common in Kolkata, because there's so many golis. And we used to, when we were looking at somebody's address, we'll see that this is by 10 by 1 by 1, meaning that there are golis. And if it is a
yes,
10 or a 10A or a 10B or something, then it is on the main road. So from
right.
the addresses you will get to know the goalies. Goalies if Calcutta again, violins are
Absolutely,
so famous,
quintessential
so
Kolkata.
absolutely.
I'm so glad you picked up violins, because I
Mhm.
have always felt, and I think it is also a reminder to some of us who continue to stay as residents in the city, because sometimes you get caught up, in all that is wrong, and you forget to see the beauty. And sometimes it takes a stranger and an outsider to come and look at something that you look at every day and say, "Oh my God, how beautiful is that house? Or how lovely are your trees?" And then you sit back and you notice, we do have beautiful trees in the city. Sometimes it takes an outsider or a stranger or a third eye, because you're used to seeing it every day, and it's become part of your space, so to say.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you picked up violins, because I don't know, Rupali, they have always felt that Kolkata, as a state of mind or as a sentiment, and I'm not trying to be over nostalgic or sentimental or anything, but we are a city of oligolis.
Right. Absolutely.
We are not a city of the highways. That can never be Kolkata. Maybe I know Newtown is shaping up differently, but the
Yeah.
scent and smell and nuance of Newtown is completely different from Kolkata. And unless you can get lost in those bylanes, unless you have lost your ways a few times, whether North Kolkata or South, and enjoyed either enjoyed it on a winter afternoon, or cycling away or on a rickshaw or simply a drive. I know so many people who, when the weather is nice, just take their car out in the evenings after dinner or something and just take it for a tiny spin. Of course, that's become a little hard with the petrol prices hitting over 100. But lots of people used to do it, and I think still continue to do it. And they go around those same lanes and they sing songs, and it's. I think there's some level of comfort and reorientation. When you've done the whole world, then you come back to your gully.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely, and I think it's also true. This little thing that you said, that going around the city's roads is
yeah,
something, the way you get to know the city of any part of the world. I have
absolutely.
done so many times. We're going to
So,
a new place. I've gone to probably traveled most of the countries in the world with work, and I had
right,
hardly much time for myself to see the city.
to
But I have
explore.
always taken a car or
Yes,
a, a vehicle, and then move around early morning, late nights, and you see
yes,
the city, you see the city's people, and you get to get close to the city. It always happens when
absolutely.
you do this spins, so to say.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as we both know, and our love for heritage unites us there, that if the weather is nice, it's still a lovely city to walk around, especially in those quaint paras, because you'll see those lovely balconies or the architecture or simply the peace of it, the
Yeah.
afternoon siestas of it,
The
or
look and smell, look
the
and smell.
local
It's
smells.
just
Yeah,
it's
absolutely,
that old Kolkata, that Purano
absolutely. The para Kolkata.
Kolkata, Kolkata. True. So coming back to my next question to ask you is, you have added some illustrations in the book. How did
Right.
that happen? Talk to us on the selection of these illustrations, Supriya.
There aren't too many. There are just about four illustrations. And if you notice, they're full page illustrations. Let me try and show any one. There you have it. I'm going to show the rickshaws
Okay. Yeah.
uh, there.
You're finding
Uh,
out the station and the boats.
the boats, yes, the Setu, and yes.
Yeah.
So there are just four. There's a lovely. The illustrator is a young girl. She's based in Ahmedabad. Her name is Niharika Joshi, and
Mm-hmm.
I came across her work on Instagram, and I thought she has a wonderful style and a pen. And
Mm-hmm.
when she was in Calcutta, and I got talking to her about the book and so on. And
Mm-hmm.
luckily for me, she was absolutely in awe of the city. I even got a chance to take her to a coffee house and College
Mm-hmm.
Street and the Boipara and those areas. And she was an absolute, she loved the city with her first breath. And I thought that a book of poems, which is so intrinsic to Kolkata, I
Mm-hmm.
can't not have the, everyday crow or the rickshaw or the boat or the Howrah. I
The
mean,
bridge.
the,
Yes.
our Setu or the Ravindra Sarovar that we love so much, the lake area. So
Mm-hmm.
there are actually precisely four poems, the four illustrations, and if you see, they come with no captions. I have on purpose not given them any caption because what I realized is all these four are places, and
Mm-hmm.
most people, including people who continue to live in the city, continue to go to these places. They are part of their everyday lives. For example, there are tons of people who go for their morning or evening walk to the Thakuria lakes,
Mm-hmm.
and let them have their own association or memory of that place. I don't want to give it a caption, and I don't want to say, the lakes or Thakuria lakes. So it comes without a caption. It gives you that space
Mm-hmm.
to kind of crack your own caption or own thought when you see that
Mm-hmm.
image.
Mm-hmm.
And also, of course, I admired her sketch and her pen very much. I just helped her zero in into these four things: the locations, the Ravindra Sarovar, the rickshaws, and of course the Howrah Bridge and the Vidyasagar Setu.
Mm-hmm.
So because she is an outsider, and also she's done this little motif, which is there throughout the book, which is this little part of cha, which is on
Mm-hmm.
top of every poem. That's how
Yes.
every poem begins. So that's also by her. And again, sometimes again we take a bhad of cha, as an everyday affair. We have it and we toss it and we throw it away. But you look at any outsider and he comes and he's completely fascinated by the way we have our bhade cha, or the way we hold it,
Mhm.
or or nowadays, of course, it's being hailed as this eco-friendly way to have the cha, because we are not using water to wash it, and we're not using plastic, of course. So something as everyday and simple, and something that we've grown up with, an outsider third person will come and say, "How lovely is this?" And ye kullad ki, but ye kullad alag hai, and then you have to explain that our kullad is different. We call it bhad, and we don't call it a kullad. So I decided to make that the motif of every poem.
Yeah, it looks lovely. It's very connected to Kolkata and
Right,
Kolkata Classics, the way you describe it. You
right.
know, but Supriya, I would like to know, we're talking about your book, but what about you? Why don't you tell us about how you have, become a writer? You have been into a professional work life before a long, many years, and then you have now chosen to become a writer. You also do other things, I know, but just tell us your story in your own way. Let's
Uh,
listen to you.
Gosh, this is a hard one. I can talk for the next 5 hours about Kolkata. Uh, if I can just, I don't know. I think Rupalini, fortunately for me, the pen or the pencil became a friend early in my life. After post graduating from Jadavpur University with international relations, I think within 7 days of finishing my exams, I took up a job as a copywriter. This was 1999. I always wanted to work and be independent. And over the last 22 years, I have done all kinds of writing. Every aspect of communication and writing, may I say, has been explored. That
Mhm.
includes the corporate style, the brand, marketing, communication, content. I'm a huge traveler, so I landed up doing innumerable number of travelogues for all kinds of papers and magazines.
Mhm.
So there was enough non-fiction. There was enough, and as a hobby, or as for my love for poetry, I was on the side always writing poetry. In fact, writing it in multiple languages. I was writing it in English, Hindi, and Urdu. Maybe at some stage, God will be kind enough, and I'll have a collection of Urdu poetry
I'm sure
out.
you will. I'm sure you will.
Thank you so much. That would be a dream come true. So I think, and what has happened is, I've also been a reader, because I sincerely believe you can't be a good writer without having read enough and read all kinds of things and all kinds of styles, even if it includes reading the Statesman for 20 years diligently every day, every morning. It chisels
Mhm.
your language, it polishes your thought, it cleans out your craft,
Mhm.
it helps you assimilate thought and arrive at the vocabulary and expression that you wish to.
Mhm.
So you must mature as a reader, and I think the two go hand in hand. As your reading matures, so does your writing. And of course, the rest, of course, depends on the kind of influences you gather in life, the kind of upbringing you've had, the people you meet, the places you go to, your profession, and so on. So I think, fortunately for me, what has happened is my personal interests and my professional interests were never at loggerheads. Whatever was my flair or interest turned into my profession, because I have been in the world of corporate communication and brands for 20 years. And all along, that needed me to either speak well or write well. So fortunately, one complemented the other. If that doesn't sound too boastful. And a few years ago, when I gave up working full time, I said that what is it that I now want to do, and over the last 5, 6 years, there have been several books. There have been anthologies, there have been coffee table books. And there was another book on Kolkata actually that came out in 2019. And in Kolkata Classics, of course, is now in 2022. This is my first collection of poems, in a
It's so
nutshell.
wonderful. It's wonderful, actually. The moment your love of whatever you want to do, love of work, and your profession, become complementary to each other or same or similar, it becomes so much more fun to work
True.
and so much more.
Absolutely.
You feel so much more grateful at the end of the day when
Yes.
you feel you are more satisfied, you are more
Absolutely.
content, and your output and performance becomes much better because you
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
doing what you love.
You are absolutely right. And, you are not pushing yourself to do that. It is
True.
coming naturally to you.
Absolutely.
Yes, you have to have some drive, of course, for that. Anything that you do without some amount of drive, you can't achieve it, no matter what your flair or interest or training. But you're not necessarily having to be pushed around by targets or any external motivation. The
True.
inspiration
True.
is internal.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely.
I
My
guess that
little,
helps.
yeah, my daughter, she's trained to be a veterinarian surgeon, so
Oh,
she's a vet,
fantastic.
and she
Wow.
loved dogs from the childhood, and loved animals per se, and that became her profession. She wanted to become a doctor for the animals, and she chose her, where she wants
Fabulous
to
to know.
go, and she went over to New Zealand, studied, and now she has started work. It's just 2 weeks that she's in Auckland, working like a vet. So I
Right.
know that she's going to be a good vet because she loves
Right.
the animals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
So
have no
that's
doubt about it, and that's fabulous to know, really. And she continues medicine.
yeah. So she
You've
wants
done
to
it
be a
for the
clinical
you've done
vet.
it for the two-legged, she'll do it for the four-legged.
So, my next year would be, to ask you is that you actually mentioned that you had the last book, which was again about Kolkata Chronicles, and that did well. And do you want to rewind how that came about, and what were the special moments when you did Kolkata Chronicles?
It's actually interestingly called Calcutta Chronicles.
Oh,
And
Calcutta, right? I didn't. Yeah, yeah,
right,
yes, yes, yes.
in fact, I
Sorry, I'm
should have
sorry
had
about
a copy of that. Sorry, I don't have a copy handy. Calcutta Chronicles came out just before the pandemic, and in a very short time, Rupalidi, I'm thrilled to say that it did exceptionally well. There was no marketing, no push, no big launches, no celebs, endorsing, nothing. It was just straight from my heart, and the number of readers who felt that it had touched their hearts, and the kind of feedback that I would receive, and I continue to receive. The thing with Calcutta Chronicles is it is extremely personal. Every single line in that book is true. It has happened in my life, and it has Calcutta serves as a canvas, but the stories are universal. So it is about growing up in Calcutta in the late 60s, 70s, and early 80s. Basically, before liberalization, before India got into that economic space, and it deals with extremely simple day-to-day affairs that we go through as families when children are growing up. Whether it's going to the movies or taking the train for summer holidays, or very simple things, or the everyday people who we encounter in our lives. And I'm very happy to say that book gave me, for everybody, for my publishers, editors, it was extremely rewarding. We got invited to all the lit fests everywhere. My only gripe, if at all, is the pandemic happened so soon. If I had got a little more time with the book, but really, honestly, it touched people's hearts, and ultimately, as a writer, that's the space you want to be in. You want to create that bond, that connect. Your reader doesn't know you. She has never met you. She's never heard of you also. And if your words or your thoughts or your expressions have resonated with her or him, that's great. Ultimately, that's the best reward.
Absolutely, absolutely. You hit the absolutely. It's being sensitive and touching the hearts of people is what I think makes a writing most close and most successful, if I may use that word. And I think you have, wherever I have seen introduction of yours, the sensitivity and the sensitiveness and being sensitive has come in many a times. To even to describe you would be your writing, a sensitive writer, that comes in, and it's so very important and so very you, Supriya.
Thank you
Uh,
so much.
so I think I'll go to the last question of mine, which if you can just the outsiders who doesn't really know much about Kolkata, if you want to share some of your experiences, something you want to share to the people who are the people from London who are listening to us today, or all around the world, because of the value of the social media is that you can reach to the wider
True.
audience. Everyone can listen to you at any point of time, even later.
Right.
So you have any thoughts you want to share, some of your experiences for those who are outside Kolkata?
Experiences of writing or the city or
City, writing, anything. You
uh,
can talk about Kolkata as a place.
right.
Up to you.
Over the years, so many friends have moved out of Kolkata, Rupalidi.
Mhm.
And they are settled in all parts of the world, not only different parts of India. They're settled in all parts of the world. Of
Mhm.
course, if they were born and brought up in Calcutta, there is some sentimentality when they come back. A lot of them also remark on the change, on the on the apparent things have changed so much, and some of them have been in very good ways over the last few years. The other thing I love to do is I actually love to take, if someone's interested enough and has the patience, I love to take people around the city, and the way I do that is I actually try and show them how contrasting the city can be. In 500 yards, the city can change completely. You could be entering Taliganj Club, and you could come out and hit the biggest mosque in the city. In 200 yards, the world is completely different. You could go into the most crowded flower market, and I could
Mhm.
also take you in, absolutely pristine precincts of, so many of our clubs.
Mhm.
So the way I like to, of course, it's nicer to know the person a little, because then you know what his or her interests are. But I
Mhm.
have taken people to the coffee house. I have taken them for walks. I have taken them to Newmarket.
Mhm.
I have taken them to so many of our clubs, and they are astonished at the number of sports all of us play. Some of them are really astonished to see us playing croquet and golf and tennis
Sports and yeah.
and squash, and we play all kinds of sports in the city. At an amateur level, but even then at a regular level. Uh, and other, I will say that this is a city that sincerely grows on you. I don't think it's love at first sight with Kolkata. I don't think it's a city that you will fall in love with as soon as you arrive here, because on the surface there is there's chaos, and there's so much of there are 20 types of vehicles, and there's honking and all kinds of things. But one thing you always hear, and you'll agree with me here, all our honorary councils who get posted in Kolkata, when they leave, their departing thought is always that we've met some of the best people here. We've met educated lot of people here. We've made great friends here. We've met genuine people here. I
Mhm.
think that, to me, in this day and age, is a very sincere compliment coming from the city, and something to be proud of, and something to retain.
Mhm.
Uh, try and retain and pass on to the next generation. That this is a city that, or this is a people and a culture that grows on you, that includes you, that makes you one of their own.
Mhm.
And perhaps that's why we rightly call the city of joy.
Absolutely, people when there is, as you said, you need to just be here, spend some years, and then you get close to Kolkata. For us, for me particularly, who came from outside Kolkata and came to 1983 to medical college, I remember that when I just felt that this is the place where I have to live and die. So I have been trained in Harvard and Berkeley, and been. I could have gone our
Could have
we
settled anywhere.
studied pharmacopoeia. I could have. Well, all our friends are in either in UK or in US, but I
Oh,
have always stayed in Kolkata, and I have traveled all over. All over. I've been with friends, but then came back, and this is the place where
that
I
says so
want to
much.
die.
That
But
says so much.
that is what is Kolkata to me. So I think we are coming to kind of an end of our conversation. I would like to read the last poem of your
Of
book,
course, you must. Absolutely, you
and it's
must.
called Immersion, and it's Bishorjon in Bangla. There is a very famous a poem of Kavi Guru Rabindranath Tagore which calls Bishorjon. It's much longer. It talks about much kind of uh, very uh, deep sorrow. I think it's a poem
Yes,
of sadness, and
yes.
it's very different. It when you read that, you're kind of, you get immersed into that. You start crying, and you get involved
The
with the
sense of
characters of that
the
poem.
sense of loss is tremendous
Yes,
in the poem.
yes, yes.
Yes,
Because that Bishorjon words is that you are giving away someone.
yes.
So that happened in that poem, but uh, your poem is very short, and it talks about very different thing of from that poem of Kobi Guru, and an ocean of goodbyes, drum beats, prayers, and moist eyes. Immersed in Ganga, she set sail. আসছে বছর আবার হবে. The belief, the hail. So very nice, and it talks about goodbyes. It talks about আসছে বছর আবার হবে. It talks about the hope that it will happen again. There is no goodbye actually, even for us here. We will say bye, but we will not literally say bye. We'll be connected
Yeah,
through our
hopefully
conversation.
we inflicted everyone and infused, a little bit of Kolkata at Nehru Centre London. Uh, yes, I think we've done well on the time. But
Yes.
before you say goodbye, I have to really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for this conversation, Dr. Basu. I know how busy you are and how
Thank you,
stretched your
Supriya, for
schedules are.
inviting me. Thank you for
Thank you
inviting me.
so much for being with us. And a million thanks to Nehru Centre London. At some point, I hope to do this in London with them, with the live audience. There's nothing like a live audience for any creative person. But a million thanks to them for inviting me with such a simple book, really, uh, uh, and allowing us to be with you all. I also want to thank. I've been in touch with Pranjula and Kavarpreet. They've been taking care of the back end, so I want to also thank them. And of course, Amish, we're waiting for you to come to Calcutta again. And thank you so much for having us here at the Nehru Centre London. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.